Good afternoon. Welcome to Drive. There was a story that I picked out this weekend that just made me feel dreadful and ill. Nicole Lampert is a Jewish journalist. Nicole, welcome to Talk Drive. How are you?
OK, thank you for having me on.
I've been proper slagged off online by a lot of people for being as strongly vocal in my support for Israel and my Jewish friends. Police are investigating after anti-Semitic words and symbols were raked into bunkers at a golf club in North London. It was Hendon over the weekend. These messages, ladies and gentlemen, included a swastika, references to Hitler, all, of course, at the start of the Jewish Holy Festival, Yom Kippur. I just want to ask you a question as a Jewish journalist. We know what's going on in the world. We know a lot of people have very strong opinions. But why are we incapable, it seems, in this country of understanding that that is pure, fervent racism? Why do we spend our entire life, quite rightly, doing anything we can to criticise racism? This is fervent racism against the Jewish race, and it continues unabated. And what do we do about it? How does it make Jewish people feel? Tell me.
How does it make us feel? It makes us feel terrible, to be honest. Scared. I actually hosted an event last week with the new president of the Board of Deputies and the head of the campaign against antisemitism to try and bring these two organisations together to discuss what we can do about this growing threat. A new poll, well, the Home Office announced last week that antisemitism had reached record figures, 33% of all religious hate crime against British Jews, and we're 0.5% of the entire population. What you're seeing, you know, those are shocking images, but they are just a visual representation of the everyday hate and fear that we feel, and it's chilling, and lots of people are discussing whether we have a future in this country. And it just, like, to me, actually, even more horrific than what you just showed was something that happened last weekend when, last Sunday, when there were quite a lot of Jewish organisations up and down the country had vigils because it was the anniversary since October the 7th. The one in Glasgow was particularly shocking. There was just a small amount of Jews, and a few feet away were some pro-Hamas demonstrators. I can only call them pro-Hamas. They took over the microphone. They shouted pigs, rats at the Jewish people. One of the people that was speaking, who couldn't even be heard, her brother was killed on October 7. The police were there and they did nothing. And that's the most chilling thing of all, that the people that are meant to protect us are not doing their job. And
I want to say this, and it's got me, and I'm very happy to be criticised. I don't care. I don't give a damn. I think that a race that needs to explain to its young kids growing up that 6 million of you were gassed to death by Nazis, I think you have every right to feel the way you do. Netanyahu is a different subject. We're talking about every day. One thing I want to say about Jewish people is, and it'll probably get me into trouble, as far as I can see it, Jewish people have integrated into the United Kingdom. They have taken part, been proud to be part of this country. I don't understand why the people who quite rightly get so affronted by racism, I don't think any racism is right, cannot see this is exactly the same. But let's look at the bigger question. What's going on in the Middle East is the direct, I think, reason for this horrific rise in anti-Semitism.
There's one of them, I would say.
What else do you think?
Well, the people that you were talking about, so the racist, anti-racist, so the left, they have this idea, this dichotomy of oppressor and victim, and because we are too white for these people, therefore we fall in the oppressor class, the colonialists, you know, and of course Israel comes into that, but even without that element, they struggle to understand where Jews sit in it, and they're angry that actually we have a real genocide that happened within living memory, and yet we don't fall into a group that they can patronise because we are too white and we're too successful.
In terms of what's happening, we hear today that Spain has urged EU countries to suspend free trade agreements with Israel. Israel on the international stage suffering somewhat. I don't want to ask you to say anything you don't want to, but are you supportive of what Israel is doing, or do you think that some of what is being shown, however it's being reported, is causing some of these problems?
Well, I've been to Israel 3 times reporting on the war. Since October the 7th, I have been speaking to people from their safe rooms. I know many of the hostage families. And obviously there's a huge amount of debate about the way Israel is pursuing this war. But for me, the main thing is knowing the people, many of the people that were attacked on October the 7th were the peaceniks. They lived and they knew the people from Gaza and they trusted them. And to think that they weren't surprised that Hamas were monsters and terrorists. They were surprised at how much Hamas knew about their own societies. They knew who to target, and they knew that from the civilians that come over. And if you saw the documentary that was on Channel 4, you could see that after Hamas came several waves of civilians. And I think that made them realize that they are fighting people that hate them and that want to kill them. And it's the same in the northern border. And that's been a war that's been ongoing since October the 8th. It's not really been discussed in this country until Israel hit back with some force with the pages.
Do you know what I said last week? And do you know what got me the biggest amount of grief? Within that region, the only democratically elected government is the Israeli government. Let's get this absolutely straight. All of those proxies, all of those terror, and how we live in a country, by the way, I'd like to apologise to every single Jew that we have a BBC, a national broadcaster that won't call Hamas a terrorist organisation. What hope have these uneducated, unwashed kids got when they march around in their T-shirts? They don't even know what Hamas stands for. I mean, that frightens me that people will go, oh, we support Hamas. Hamas, the Houthis, Hezbollah are funded, for Christ's sake, by the mullahs in Iran, who have one wish, which is to exterminate Jewish people. That can't be right. But all I ever hear is, well, look, I don't like what I see. I don't like what I see in Gaza, but I don't like what's happened. And I think, Israel has a right to defend itself. Now, we've now got a government. I mean, look, Spain urging EU countries to suspend free trade with Israel. We've got a bloody foreign secretary in David Lammy, who's last week said that he felt climate change was more important than international terrorism. He'll probably sign up to that as well. And you're telling me that a lot of Jewish people are feeling like they don't want to be here anymore.
I think it's Spain and Ireland that are really pushing this. And as you say, like, the world is upside down, where we have European countries supporting terrorists. These are people that within a few weeks after October the 7th, they wanted to recognise a Palestinian state. And now that is something that I would definitely want for one day in the future, but not when you have terrorists in charge of a big tranche of it. So it does feel like the world is upside down. There's plenty to criticise David Lammy for, but just in the last few minutes, actually, he's just announced that they are going to apply extra sanctions to some Iranians. So I think the problem with David Lammy is you don't really know where you stand.
You don't know what you're going to get with him, all this Labour government. Can I just say, always great to have you on, Nicole. Thank you. And I just, I think it's important. I think it's a very easy thing. Oh, be anti-Semitic. It's not racism. It is racism. People like Nicole, who are talking about Jewish people and the impact of October the 7th, 2020. This isn't... It's really important that people try and understand what this is doing to the Jewish community. I repeat a story I tell you every day. But a friend whose kids can't wear their school blazers. It's not those kids' fault, is it? 12 minutes to 5. Talk Drive.